start again. It's a redskin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Corgi Town USA podcast. I am Candy, owner of the podcast and lifestyle brand. In my lap is Chuckles, our spokes Corg, and always.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and down on the floor is my little boy, Digby.
And he's wrestling with Corgi committee member Mortimer Barnabas.
Yes.
We also have Booger and Hammer in studio with us. So if you're new here, hi and welcome. We have a new episode every week about Corgi lifestyle, all things Corgi, and pet and parenting lifestyle, health, traveling, training, all those things that concern us as pet parents. And we get borks occasionally because we have a house full of Corgis. There are 5 in studio. It gets loud. We lose equipment. Things happen. We just come right back and we roll with it, just like a Corgi would.
That's right. Casa de Corgis.
Casa de Corgis. So we've been doing some interest pieces on kind of what's in the breed. And there's this kind of discussion, and we have a couple of different guests this season where we'll kind of talk about this. But there's, a little bit of divisive conversations about breeding, adopt, don't shop, all those things. Anytime I come into those conversations, I don't argue. I have several adoptees.
Yes.
And I'm all about adoption 100%. But I feel like it's just as important if we look at how, when, why we're adopting as it is when we get from a breeder. And we're not anti-breeder here. We're all about our good breeders. And as we've done this, and I'm sure you can kind of agree with me, Kat,
Yes.
I've kind of learned that breeding is a very careful, very mindful science. And that is why there is so much fervor attached to it.
A heartfelt science. It has to have, for good breeding, a lot of heart.
Yeah, and the good ones, the good breeders are doing it for preservation, for health of the breed, for breeding out healthy, good, well-mannered stock. These are dogs that typically don't wind up in the shelter.
Right.
That's what we found, talking to our friends in rescue, talking to friends that breed, kind of across the gamut, trying to get that full, broad perspective. What are we missing? And often with issues that are divisive, you get a lot better information by asking the question versus throwing the judgment and making assumptions.
Absolutely.
So that's why we like to have those conversations, ladies and gentlemen. We're all about adoption. Thank you for getting dogs out of shelters. Thank you for adopting. 100%. We are behind it, and we're here to help guide you if you have questions. If you want to get a puppy from a breeder, we are also behind that. We ask that you ask the right questions and be careful where you get them from, because the backyard breeding and the accidental litters, those are the ones that wind up in shelters 90% of the time and wind up on the chopping block.
Unfortunately, that is what happens. So just like anything else, you want to be very particular. You don't want to leave it to chance. And just like all economics, if dog parents stop using backyard breeders with bad practices, they go out of business, just like anything else. And that is at least my hope, is that the bad guys either change your ways or stop doing it and go find something else to do that won't hurt the people and the breed.
Well, and we've had a guest that said, find one that does it for the right reasons, that they care about the breed
Exactly.
instead of the money. But more so, feel free to ask us. We are not going to ever be incentivized by a breeding program,
No.
ever. We are
No.
not going to recommend 1 or 2 breeders, but we will give you information on where ours came from. We will also give you guidance on what questions to ask.
Exactly.
So this episode, we're going to bring on a very nice lady who has a sweet little Corgi named Murphy. And if some of you are in some of the Corgi groups, you've probably seen him. And she has a story to tell us that's kind of in line with this discussion. Should we bring her on?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jenny Lane. That's Murphy's mom. Jenny, welcome.
Good morning or afternoon.
Yeah, depending
Okay.
on where you are in the world listening.
Exactly.
Correct. This is true.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time with us today and educating us and telling your story. Can you tell us, just kind of introduce yourself, and then tell us how you got into Corgis and how you wound up wanting and getting a Corgi?
Okay. I have an English grandmother, so I've known about Corgis my entire life. I've always wanted one. Don't know why I ever didn't get one until I got Murphy. But Murphy wasn't something that I got for myself. We had a grieving Weimaraner who had lost his best friend to cancer about 3 months prior, and was my granddaughter's first real dog, and she was grieving as well. Allie, I knew, would get past it one day, but my vet said that my Weimaraner wasn't getting past it. So we went the route of actually going to several rescues. I drove as far as 350 miles away. I was hoping to maybe adopt an older dog that nobody else would want. And the problem that we were having is either the dog wasn't compatible with Kai, or Kai wasn't compatible with the dog. And my vet suggested a puppy. So I went, okay, great. There's my opportunity to get a Corgi. Now, I have always thought that the American Kennel Club, AKC, was the brand standard. And so I went online and looked up the AKC, and they had the AKC Marketplace.
Oh.
And that's where I found Murphy. He was advertised on the AKC Marketplace by a breeder in Sacramento. I figured, God, it's AKC. It's got to be, top notch. I reached out to the gentleman. He told me that he had 5. He had 3 males, 2 females. I said, I'm looking for one that's more on the calmer side. And he said, I have one. And he sent me the pictures, and I thought maybe he was just looking off in an odd direction. I didn't realize that he actually had an eye issue until I saw him. Went to pick him up, and the breeder was out in the front yard. I didn't get to meet mom or dad. That was first mistake on me. I should have. He had one of Murphy's litter mates under his arm who was 2.5 times the size of Murphy. And Murphy was sitting underneath a tree very calmly, just laying there. And he just said, if you don't want him, pointing to Murphy, he said, you can have him. And the guy wouldn't shake my hand, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. And my gut was just telling me if I leave that dog there, it wasn't going to end well. So I took him. And I thought he had something called strabismus, which is being cockeyed. And that's something that I know for a fact that can be helped and sometimes completely straightened out with exercises. So I got Murphy cat toys and made him focus on looking in front of him. But then I found out when I took him to the vet for his first checkup that he was fraught with a lot of other issues as well.
No. So will you tell us about the issues?
Sure. When
Okay.
I brought him to the vet, the first issues were he was full of tapeworm.
Oh,
He
He hadn't dewormed him.
He had Giardia. I thought it was very strange that the health certificate they gave me was a general health certificate that covered all 6 puppies.
Oh.
And so that was, a big red flag for me. And my vet says, I don't think this puppy's ever been vaccinated or seen by a vet, because if he had been, you would know what's wrong with him. Right. So we dewormed him. We put him on meds. My vet had suggested that, because my vet's been my vet for 25 years. He's awesome. He says, I know you're raising your granddaughters. Please make certain they don't let the dog lick their face, because Giardia is very contagious and the girls can get sick. Yes. Well, the first thing I thought about was the breeder's toddlers that were in his front yard as well. And I'm thinking, gosh, I should probably let this man know.
Right.
So that his kids don't get sick. Well, he kind of lashed out at me, thinking that I was accusing him of not having a clean breeding site. And I said, hey, look, I'm just trying to give you the heads up so your kids don't get sick. Then we went to vaccinate Murphy. He got incredibly sick. He got so sick. And the vet, for 5.5 months, he was on steroids. And my vet wasn't able to 100% confirm if Murphy was allergic to the vaccinations that he received, or if he got something called puppy strangles. So he treated him as if he had puppy strangles. It took a really long time. During all of that, my vet says, he looks like he has congenital cataracts. He says, I want to refer you to an eye specialist in Reno. So I got Murphy in May. By the end of June of 2022, I had an appointment to see an eye specialist in Reno. She said not only does he have congenital cataracts, he has a disease called microphthalmia. And this happens when one of three or two of three things happen. Mama dog doesn't get enough proper nutrition during pregnancy.
Oh,
So one or more puppies can be born with that issue. Mom or dad, or both mom and dad, carry a defective gene that causes this. Now, my vet said, based on what he looked at online, he didn't think this was a new breeder. He says, I think this guy has known about this, and he was just
Oh
hoping
no.
to get the dog. So you guys, when you had, oh gosh, I can't even think of her name right now, but you had a gal on who took the Merrills, the double Merrills that were
Oh,
blind to
the
deaf.
double Merles. Yeah,
Yeah.
she takes care of blind corgis. Yeah,
Right.
wonderful.
And she reached out to me,
It's Caitlin. Yeah.
Caitlin. Yeah. And we had a great conversation. And she was just telling me it's really, really bad breeding that causes this. And unfortunately, and I was listening to you guys talk about the fact that I was as angry as both of you were with the breeder.
yes.
And then when Caitlin said she had to be really careful about her feelings with the breeders because ultimately the dogs are the ones that suffer if she gets in their face, it kind of, I don't know, it put me in a place of kind of indecision. I'm really, really angry at this human being for putting this puppy through what he did.
Yeah.
Because my anger towards him is the fact that he knew immediately. I mean, my vet thought initially that Murphy had been dropped at birth, and that might have been what had caused his eye issues, and that he might have neurological issues, but that ended up, thank God, not being the case. But it upsets me terribly when the bottom line, being profit, is more important than the health and welfare of an animal that relies on human beings for its
Yes.
care.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't know much about corgis. I had no idea that if you're not married, it's like being married. Because they're extremely bossy and very, very demanding,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
they want what they want, and they're not going to back down. But I absolutely adore him. He loves every human being that he encounters.
Aw.
The eye specialist said when I saw her in June that if his eyes grew enough by the end of last December, he would be a candidate for cataract surgery.
Okay.
So, but she said with the microphthalmia, she felt pretty confident that that wasn't going to happen.
Aw.
So between the eye specialist and my vet, who found a very expensive vitamin to add to his food that contained vitamin A, and you have to be really, really careful with vitamin A.
Yes.
So we put that in his diet, and luckily by last December, his eyes had grown enough that she felt he could have surgery. I wanted to wait until the spring because I live in Lake Tahoe, and we had close to 60 feet of snow this last winter.
Whoa.
And I didn't want to be driving back and forth from the lake to Reno,
Yeah.
trying to get him help if there were going to be storms. So Murphy had his surgery in May.
Yay.
I think I don't know if wishing made it so, he'd be perfect, by everybody's standards. He's perfect to me. I was heartbroken when she told me that she wasn't able to get lenses into his eyes, because not having lenses in his eyes meant that his sight was going to be very limited. He can see things at a distance. He's farsighted. He cannot see things up close with clarity. She told me that his right eye had cysts behind it. She says structurally it's not in the best of shape, and I'm not certain it's going to make it. The eye pressure for dogs should be somewhere between single digits and in the mid 20s. Within 24 hours, both of Murphy's eye pressures were off the charts. The right one was in the 70s. His other one was in the 50s. But by the end of the day, she got them both down to reasonable range.
That must have been so uncomfortable for him.
Yeah.
I had no idea, Candy, how
Oh, I'm
much
sure. Yeah.
pain
No,
he
you
was
were
in.
helping him, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't have any idea how much pain he was in until he lost the eye. Because
Aw.
when I had to take him back because I thought he was losing both eyes, she said, no, this is normal. You're just, this is normal. I felt like an overreactive parent. Then by the following week, I was back and she told me his right eye is not going to make it. And we really need to take it out. So once she took it out and I brought him home, he was entirely a different dog. I did not realize how much that right eye had been bothering him his entire life.
Poor
So
baby.
within a week, he was back to his Corgi self. Sometimes I don't think he can see anything, while other times I think he can see everything. It's just been a really incredible journey with this dog, and I love him more than any animal I've ever had, and I've had a lot of animals.
Aw.
Welcome to Corgdom. That happens.
Not only welcome to Corgdom, but you have a special place in your heart
Yeah.
for the ones that we have to take care
Nurse.
of,
Yeah.
that we have to nurse, that we have to be more mommy to.
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely the caretaker. I want to go back just a little bit. I'm always intrigued when our guests teach me something
Yeah.
that I don't know. And I've had 7 corgis over 17 years. I feel
Yes.
like I'm not that I'm calling myself an expert, but I'm pretty versed.
Right.
I have not heard of puppy strangles.
Neither had I. I'm 60 years old. I grew up on a ranch. I've
Okay.
had my granddaughter sat down with me one day and she asked me to think back and count every dog I've had in my life. And I've had close to 30.
Wow.
Never in my entire life have I ever heard of puppy strangles. Apparently, it's very common with horses,
Okay.
but it's not real common with puppies. And it's the equivalent of a human getting strep throat.
Okay.
And what happens is the glands in their throat, in their neck, they get really, really infected. And this is going to sound really a bit disgusting when I say this, but if it goes untreated, what happens is those glands burst through the skin and the infection ends up in the dog's face and eyes and they end up going blind. So if you have, if you have a dog that you're scratching around the neck and they start to scream and you notice some glands are a little swollen, get them to the vet, because there is a treatment for that, and it's better to have it caught sooner rather than later, because if you can catch it before it rips through the skin, I've been told you can save yourself a lot of a heartache and pain, and the dog as well.
Gosh, that sounds awful and
Yeah.
terrifying. It's kind of terrifying.
When I did the research on it, I was like, oh my God, I didn't sleep for the first 2 nights I found out about it. I wanted to watch him all the time and make certain he was okay. But my vet also told me that the other thing that I learned is that corgis can be a bit melodramatic. And
we don't believe that.
Yeah, my vet calls Murphy a drama king. So he went to check him to see if he had been, gotten better from the puppy strangles, and he goes, hold him by, his neck. And I said, oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not causing him any pain. He screams, it upsets me. So my vet grabs him. He screams. My vet looks him in the eyes and says, now, enough of that. We both know that you're not hurting. And Murphy didn't cry one more time.
Oh my goodness.
He's the corgi whisperer.
Yeah, it was crazy. But he's been the best dog ever. If I was younger, I would, as I've said on Facebook, I would probably end up being the crazy old corgi lady, and I would have one in every color. So
that really is me.
Yeah, that's you.
But the one thing that I have to say to you guys, and I truly mean this from my heart, I work with the general public daily. I have to deal with a lot of people online. Like many other people, I've been on Facebook for quite some time. I have to say that I have never encountered a group or groups of people that love anything as much as they love these dogs.
Yep.
Somebody apparently tried to take Murphy's picture recently And a gal who is one of Murphy's fans from Canada, she went on Facebook and she just lost it and got a bunch of people together to make certain it got taken down. So yeah, it's people beware, or should I say trolls beware. You
Yeah.
don't want to mess with corgi lovers because they are devout. They love these animals. No one has ever been mean to me on any of these groups, where
Good.
it's just been awesome to get the support that I've gotten for
Well,
Murph.
That's the power of Corgi Nation. Yeah.
Yes.
I've actually been working behind the scenes on trying to compile a list of stories on the power of Corgi Nation like this, on something like what brought you out of a certain situation because some people came forward. And that's been one of the most wonderful things that has come out of this podcast is we have this amazing network of people, resources like Caitlin, who takes care of blind corgis. We have a guest that comes on that worked in animal welfare, sees all these different perspectives. I mean, just an amazing group of just interconnected web of people, to your point. Yes, very passionate about these animals. And we all help each other with information, education, definitely support. And yes, you are correct. We are a village of crusaders.
Yeah, and you guys are all have got to be the kindest people I've ever encountered in my life.
Thank you.
I saw something on Facebook yesterday, and I've seen a lot of it lately on these groups where people have corgis that have hurt themselves recently, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and if this surgery is going to cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Get pet insurance. Murphy's diagnosis was not covered. It was considered a pre-existing condition because he was born that way.
Right.
But ASPCA insurance going forward, after his surgery, has said they'll insure everything, including whatever else goes on with his eye going forward.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah, my big dog has Pets Best Insurance. I love that. My Weimaraner, he had $2,600 worth of lipomas removed several years ago, and they covered $1,800 of it. So even if it's $20 to $40 a month, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than $6,000, $10,000.
Oh yeah,
because these little guys, as we all know, they are gladiators.
they are.
And they have no fear, and they will take on the world. And because their legs are so little, I've noticed that they can be predisposed to getting hurt.
Yep, absolutely. IVDD is a big problem with corgis, and they're not supposed to jump very high, but boy, are they kamikaze out the gate. So it is quite the challenge. You're correct.
It is.
Yeah, I've been really lucky with Murphy because of his eye issues. He's not one to jump on or off of things.
Yeah,
but he still will tear through the backyard like nobody's business. And now that he can't see, you got to make certain it's still the way he remembers it. Otherwise, he's going to have an accident. So
he can see far in the one eye.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just not up close at all.
Well, she says what he can see up close is the equivalent of, how do I want to explain it? You know how a great example. When I was coming on to your show, it was giving me the option to choose different backgrounds.
Right.
And there's a blurred background. And she says it's a lot like that.
Okay.
She says, but depending upon the colors, he can see them a little bit better. And if he's like with me, he's familiar with me, even though I may be a shadow up close, he still knows that it's me. So we went on our first bike ride this morning. I got his basket put on my bike, and I put his rec specs on. And by the time we hit the neighborhood for the second round, he was on his back in the basket in true Corgi style, and just loving life. So
that's wonderful. Is the breeder still being shown on AKC?
That's a good question. I can't find him. I can't find him.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that he's not. Now, based on some digging that I've done, I think he's now like in the Antelope Valley area, because when my assistant, who should be an FBI agent, did a deep dive on these people, she found them at 5 or 6 different addresses.
Oh my goodness.
They also advertised that they bred corgis as well.
Wow, this guy's kind of chock full of red flags, isn't he?
Well, the thing that made me the angriest with him is when I reached out to him and sent him Murphy's written diagnosis from the eye specialist. I told him, my attorney says, you need to give me some of my money back or we're going to settle this in court. And he said, well, I can exchange him out. And I got pissed. Excuse my language. I was angry. I said, this dog is not a pair of shoes.
Right.
I'm in love with him. I'm invested in this. And you took advantage of me and you're going to find a way to make it right. So he gave me back half of my money.
After much cajoling. Jeez.
Yes.
It was after much cajoling. And, by the time we were done with it, and this is the other thing I'd kind of like to convey to your listeners. If you have a situation where you have a Corgi and you need to raise some money for surgery for them, I am not somebody who asks for help very easily. I never have been my entire life. Because I knew that Murphy might be having eye surgery for a year, I saved every dime I could. And I came up with 80% of what I needed, but I had no idea that it was going to be so expensive.
Yes.
And we were told the surgery initially, the national average is around $4,000. By the time he was checked again, the estimate was $6,000, but then there was $1,300 in pre-surgery testing that had to be done. And then when he lost his eye, it was $1,400 surgery to remove his eye.
And follow-ups. Yep.
Yeah. So I now have the $11,000 dog and he's not allowed to get sick or hurt. So if I could put him in a bubble, I would.
Yeah. Not an option.
Again, just another reason that if you go out there and you start a GoFundMe page and you talk to your admins on a lot of these sites, I've noticed that some of them will allow the GoFundMe to be posted or allow people to IM you to see if they can contribute. Murphy has a huge fan base here in Lake Tahoe on the East Shore. They call him the mayor of Round Hill. Aww. So when my builders and my developers and a lot of the shop merchants and the post office over here in Zephyr Cove all found out that he needed surgery, everybody contributed because they wanted him to have the best chance he could get.
I love this.
I love this.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Our hearts are with little Murphy. What you are explaining, this is a very, very big reason of why we do what we do.
Yes.
I have friends that you were talking about how you had Corgis, you knew about Corgis.
Yes.
And they were relatively new to me in high school when we got our first one. And this was way back before social media and when everything got really, just out there where they got really popular. And so my first Corgi, people would say, what kind of dog is that? He's really interesting and couldn't figure it out. And then fast forward to the last 10 years, you can't go anywhere without what we call the paparazzi. Oh my gosh, Corgi. And everybody. Yeah. And it's created a craze, which is, it's good and it's bad. It's always wonderful when we know how much our people love our pets. We get fan mail for Chuckles. And it warms my heart because he's, absolutely a heart baby. But also there's some negatives that come to that. And that's people see this cute dog. We were talking about the movie with Channing Tatum recently in the Malinois. Malinois are not bred to be house pets. They're very serious work drive and need extensive training. But some wind up in shelters after certain media crazes because people see this well-trained, wonderful, good-looking, well-bred dog and think, I want one of those.
Right.
And then the demand goes up. So does the backyard breeding and the unsavory breeding practices. And then we have this problem of shelters full of certain breeds of dogs. And so that's what we're trying to sort of quell here. We love the Corgidom. We love the craze. We love the fanning out. Yes, please. We love it. We're part of it. We're all of it. And Jenny kept saying, you guys, welcome. You're one of us now. You've been fully assimilated.
Well, thank you very much. The one thing that I tell people when they go, oh my God, I love your Corgi. I've always wanted one. I look at them and I say, that's great. I said, and mostly it's kids. And I'll look at the mom and dad and I'll say, here's what you need to know. One Corgi sheds the equivalent of 5 dogs. And I'm not joking.
And they also bark.
They bark at everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I saw the doormat that says, don't bother knocking. We know you're here. I mean, Murphy knows if he's coming down the driveway. I mean, you don't even, and if a doorbell or someone knocks on the door on television, Oh,
It's
for
over.
God's sake, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they're fabulous dogs, and it does take, in my opinion, it takes a certain kind of person to be able to have a corgi.
Yes.
Patience, tolerance, kindness, and be a strong handler. And what I mean by that is non-compromising.
Right.
Exactly. I
Yep.
mean, it's like having a perpetual 2-year-old in your life. I mean,
That's exactly what I say.
Yeah, they don't grow into children. They stay toddlers. I mean, my granddaughter's convinced that a fox did it with a rabbit, and that's how corgis came to being. She loves the corgi myth, but she realistically thinks that there was some species crossbreeding going on at some point.
Could
But
be.
they are just the greatest gift to this world, and I love all of them. He got to go to his first corgi meetup 2 weeks ago. He did so good. The biggest thing that Murphy's had a challenge of since he's had his surgery is, prior to surgery, he loved every human and every dog. And I don't know, because I'm a first time corgi owner, and you guys maybe can enlighten me. He lays down in a submissive lay anytime he meets somebody to let them know, I'm not a threat to you. And he would do that even with the dogs. But now that he doesn't see very well, if he encounters another dog, he gets very scared if they get into his space too much. And you know that corgi lip snarl, and they kind of snap before they say anything. He was doing that a lot. So I was really nervous about taking him, but oh my goodness, he had so much fun at that corgi meetup. It was like, my peeps, oh my God, I'm in heaven. And he ran around. Yeah, he loved it. We're going to go back. Northern Nevada Corgis has a meetup several times a year with their corgis, and it was just a lot of fun.
How wonderful.
That is wonderful. And I love that he's getting to go out now. He's getting to be a dog. And thank you for giving that to him. And thank you for sticking by him
Thank
and
you
loving
for
him.
saving him.
Yeah,
Thank you for
100%.
saving him.
Well, I think that kind of goes both ways. He saved us too. So
always. And was the AKC informed of the breeder?
Oh, it's funny that you asked that, because I did some research and I tried to contact them. I was having a very difficult time. Nowadays, it's impossible to get anybody on a telephone. I emailed repeatedly. I started asking around to other AKC breeders that I knew, and they said, no, here's the deal. AKC charges a fee to these people to allow them to advertise on their site.
Yep.
They do not police it, and they should. So I was told in the state of California, I don't know about the other states around the country. I live in Nevada, but I purchased Murphy in California.
Okay.
I was told to contact the USDA in Sacramento. I sent them a letter. I don't know what, if anything, ever ended up happening. So.
Well, we've, in the past couple seasons, we had mentioned that we've had some friends on that have worked in animal care and welfare.
Yes.
Certain states are more stringent than others, but bad breeding practices, it's the Wild West. It kind of is everywhere. And I want to touch on AKC. And I've been trying to get a hold, you have these influencers that are huge podcasters, but Bailey Sarian has a series called Dark History. And I would love for her to do one on the American Kennel Club, because there is some history there. And I don't want to make any enemies with anyone. There are good things that the AKC does, 100%. And you definitely want, I'm going to say two things. One, you do want your breeder to AKC register the pups, the litter. The reason why you want that, the reason why that is good, is you can chase the lineage up several.
Yes, and I agree with that, because
that is the good. That is the good. The bad is, from an organic standpoint, it really means nothing. So when people say, "Oh, I got a dog from a breeder," it's AKC registered, and that is kind of like, it's sort of thrown around as a badge of honor. This is what I mean by that doesn't mean anything. For instance, Exhibit A, this breeder we're talking about, gave you some AKC papers. All that means is that, yes, he's paid his dues to be able to, or did he give you papers? You said.
Oh no, he gave me papers. That's how I had the information on the dame and the sire, and was able to post it on Facebook.
Right. Thank you. Sorry, short-term memory over here, but yes.
That's okay.
So that is the good of the AKC and why I'm behind that. You do want them AKC registered. There are some outliers out there that are other kennel club registration. That's not actual real registration. You're not going to be able to chase the lineage. So please know that. So that's why you do want your breeder AKC registered. You want to be able to get that registration and go back several generations. You want that. This does a number of things, including not crossbreeding in the same family. Being able to see that, lots of other reasons, but that's why that is important. And the negative side to that, when it means nothing, is that's all the AKC registry really gives you. I don't want to make enemies with AKC because, like I
Right.
said, they do good things. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus. It could be that it's such a huge organization with so many players that it's just unmanageable.
Right.
So there is that. I don't want to say, oh, this is your fault or anything like that. But that's what that means. You do want them AKC registered for that reason. The negative is beyond that doesn't really mean anything. You want
That's
genetic
I
testing.
agree with you 100%. I truly do. The one thing that I am grateful for is the fact that I was given the dame and the sire's name with the AKC paperwork so that I could post it online. It's so important to me. I didn't realize that these Corgi websites that we have on Facebook or groups are more international. They're all around the world. But I want people to know that, please check the posts that I've made where Murphy is on there. It tells his story. It tells who his mom and his dad are. If you have a dog that has either parent, I caution you. I truly caution you because there's no way for us to know if it was mom, if it was dad, if it was both.
Yes.
That carried this issue. And I got to tell you, his sibling didn't look like he was undernourished. I mean, Murphy did. I suspect Murphy was the runt. But I've had people come up to me and ask me questions about him and, oh, you should breed him at least once before you get him fixed. And I just don't think that people understand the damage that you can do by perpetuating these issues with these dogs.
Mhm.
And if we, not every Corgi ends up in one of these wonderful rescues where these people take care of them. And
Right.
and when Caitlin said on your podcast that these breeders, they can kill them and do horrible things to them, it's just, my vet said he was convinced that because Murphy has the markings that he had, he said if you hadn't taken him, Jenny, I think he'd have thrown him in a cage and used him for breeding.
That
And
happens more often than we would like to think about. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, and it's just, it breaks my heart. I know, setting aside the financial part of it, which is a lot,
Yes,
Mhm.
it is.
it's emotionally devastating for the people who love the animal. And because I have no way of knowing what he's going through, I don't know how hard it's been on him. I just know that I've learned from him that, my expectations aren't what matters. It's how he lives when he's done. And he's shown me that my life's good, Mom. Nothing's changed for me, and that just makes me happy.
Yeah. You're doing wonderful work. We appreciate you so
Thank
much.
you.
And
The last thing, I don't want to keep you all night, but the last thing I will say about this is I'm backing you up here. And this is why breeding, we need to pay attention to it.
yes.
We need to disassemble the fervor between adopt, don't shop and buying from a breeder. The well-bred dogs that were mindfully purchased and did research on, those are not the ones 90% of the time that wind up in shelters and wind up on the street. It's the backyard breeding. It's the breeders that breed for money instead of temperament and preservation.
Right.
And we do several episodes and chunks and bits on this because it is a very deep rabbit hole. There are a lot of facets to it. And I'm not an enemy of breeders. I love our good breeders. I love them. Thank you so much for doing that good work and giving us these wonderful, healthy, amazing dogs. They are prone to genetic conditions. That's what we learn with breeding. And we talk a lot about DM, degenerative myelopathy, because Corgis, I think the last research we posted was something like 63% were carriers of the gene. And
Right.
the argument is that if just because they carry gene doesn't mean they will develop. true. Not all the research is done, but I have not been convinced that it's okay to breed them when you could have an at-risk litter, because I have a DM dog, and it's the process you explain about the owner watching your dog helplessly degenerate in front of you, and you just want them to have a good life and be happy and healthy. So you have to pay attention to that and manage everything that comes with that. And that's just an example. There are a lot of things like this.
Right.
OFA, hips, and eye regulations are part of the things we recommend with corgis
So many,
as
so
well.
many.
Yeah.
I know if Digby were to breed with another merle-eyed dog, the puppy would be, well, Digby
High
can't breed.
chance.
High
High
chance.
yeah.
High chance.
But Digby's also
Blind.
crossbreed. Digby has been registered as American. He's not AKC registered. We don't have
Yes.
that. He's a rescue. He's a rehome from, yeah. I mean, we don't have that history on him either.
No.
So, and we're, of course, grateful to have him because he
Because
found a
he's-
good place and he's been wonderful to you and he was supposed to go to you. But these are the things. These are the conversations.
These are all the conversations. And so that's, that's why we have these episodes, and that's why we want to make aware.
Yes. And please feel free to share us, dear listener, dear viewer, Jenny, anyone, we're here to be a resource. This is what we want to do. We want to help this problem. We want to be part of the solution and help guide people because they are popular. And to your point about meeting children who are corgi crazy, I'm a trainer. I meet a lot of people. Oh, I love corgis. And of course, when I'm out with mine, I love corgis. I hand them my business card. I say,
Yeah.
follow our podcast, please. Learn all the things. Make sure they're
Yes.
right for you. Let us guide you on where you should look.
That's right.
So,
That's a truism, and I want to thank you girls both so much for everything that you guys do. I've learned so much since I got Murphy a year ago last month that I didn't think I would ever need to know, and I truly have learned a lot.
Thank you.
yes, thank you. We'll give
You're
little Murphy some belly rubs for us. Tell him he's the goodest boy and pat yourself on the back for doing such a wonderful job with him and being part of the crusade off of what you learned. This is how positive change happens.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
Jenny,
me.
again. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, we hope this helps you if you are either looking for a corgi or you already have them and people ask you questions. Please feel free to share this episode with them. We don't want to call it a cautionary tale because, of course, Jenny's very glad she has Murphy, but it is sort of a cautionary tale.
It
Where to
is.
look. Yeah.
It is. Murphy didn't have to go through what he went through if his breeder had any, any sense of moral.
Let's use positive words.
Yes.
If his breeder did the right thing,
If his breeder did the right
did
thing.
genetic testing, paid attention, bred for the right reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, write to places like the AKC and ask, why aren't you being more careful with who you have on your website? That reflects badly on a long institution. AKC is
Perhaps.
well
This is why we
100
need
years old.
Bailey to do a dark history on it.
Yes.
I'll write to her again, see if we can get
Yes.
her to do it because
Bailey,
they're really
do the
good at
dark
everything.
history on the AKC. And like you said, it has its good points, and we all write and say, how come this is happening? They could nip their bad points in the bud.
Hopefully.
Maybe. Hopefully.
All we can do is give the information, hope for the
That's
best,
what we
and
do.
put our hearts in the right place.
That's right.
Please like and subscribe. Join us. Not all episodes are this heavy. We have a creator series where we celebrate creators. We also just tell funny stories too. So please join us every Thursday, Corgi Town, USA. Good night.
Bye.